Hello and welcome to the Buckets and Tea NBA show. I'm your host, Cathryn Naiker. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today, back to the show. We're not reviewing sandwiches. We are actually reviewing the playoffs this time. It's Casey Bannerman. How you doing, buddy?
What up? What up? Disappointed we're not talking about sandwiches, but I'm here anyways. I'm always down to talk about sandwiches.
We'll have to do maybe another off season. Our original idea was coaches and sandwiches. Maybe we can come back to that. We might have some shuffling of the coaches this year. Different teams that could alter what sandwich we pair them with. If anyone missed it over the Christmas holidays, we did a NBA All-Stars and sandwiches. So we picked our top 5 All-Stars and paired them with a sandwich, and it was really fun. And we did that with Andrew Fung. So shout out to Andrew. And but we're here to talk about playoffs. We're recording this Thursday afternoon. So all the game 1s and 2s have happened so far. So it's just our early thoughts on everything that has come to fruition. First of all, we got to start talking about Draymond Green with his 1-game suspension after the stomp on Sabotage in game 2, initially led to an ejection and now a game 1 suspension. Lots of debate happening around this, whether people think it's fair or unfair. A lot of people have been like, stop defending Draymond, which means there's a lot of people defending Draymond. and I feel like every single take has probably been said except for ours. So Casey, where do you land on this?
Draymond's a very polarizing character. There's no question about that. And I think that's by design. I mean, that's who he wants to be. And I think that's, frankly, I'm sort of getting to a place where I'm really enjoying the heels. I enjoy to hate them. Because you could look back on my takes of Draymond and say, well, you've hated him before. But I relish that. I really enjoy it. In terms of his suspension, though, I'll say first off, I'm just surprised that more wasn't made of what Sabotage did leading to that. He very clearly grabbed his leg. He was very clearly instigating that. I'm not saying that what Draymond turned around and did like the face stomp, the chest stomp, was not like a natural motion, and it was certainly extra. First off, I will say that I was surprised that nothing came of Sabotage, like in terms of any punishment that was levied against him. Also, it feels like most of this was a reputation suspension. Does that make sense?
Which they even said so in the statement. Like in the statement, they talk about Draymond having a history of events like this.
Well, it's either, I don't know, like does not really feel like parliamentary court of law, like where it's like you're looking back on past. I mean, in some level, I guess you could look at somebody who's had no history of that and sort of go, okay, well, maybe that was a bit of a mistake. But honestly, I didn't love that part of it. Either a suspension or it's not a suspension. In terms of like, I saw some people talking about, when he was suspended during the Cavs series. I mean, that was because he had so many technicals previous to that point, right?
Yeah.
So it's a completely different situation. I don't know. I think it's hard to say because Draymond does do a lot for the Warriors on the court. You can even just see it with his on-off stats against the Kings. He's a big body out there to deal with Sabonis. He dealt with them probably a little too much with that stomp, but I will say that he's put them in an awkward situation right now. I just don't know if because that was excessive to the moment. Like, it's one thing to pull your leg away or push at him, but to like really stop your forward momentum, turn around, and stomp probably isn't the right word, even even though it was a stomp, but
it was really more of a gallop, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it was just like but to do that, you're just like, Dre, like you're putting your team, like now Steph really has to have like an all-time great game in the next game, because they can't really keep up with, like, you can see it. They can't keep up with the Kings' speed, their offensive rebounding, all of that stuff. And for somebody not to be out there to deal with, I mean, Kuminga's played himself out of this series. Sorry. And I'm not off Kuminga Island. I love the guy. I've actually worked with the guy. I did his rookie card for the G League and Ignite. We did like an NFT card for him. Very nice guy. I think he will develop into a very good player in this league. But as of where he is right now, I mean, it's not really much that he can do. So I don't know. I mean, that's my take on it. Just sort of sucks for the Warriors.
I agree in that not enough was made of Sabonis grabbing the ankle. I don't think, I don't think what Draymond did was right at all. Like it was ridiculous and it was excessive. And I do think I do actually think the suspension is warranted. Like, I do think there is some precedence for that, but I also think like Sabonis should have also maybe gotten, maybe not a flagrant 2. Did he get a flagrant 1? Now I'm trying to remember. I think maybe so. It was just a tech. Like, I just feel like more should have been made of him instigating it because he tried it. Like, I know a lot of people are trying to defend Sabonis. No, he tried it. Nobody tries to get up from the ground by wrapping their arms around someone else's ankle. You know what I mean? Like,
no, 100%.
Yeah, like if he doesn't stomp on him and he just trips and they review that, that's at least a flagrant 1. So, I do think with Draymond, in my personal opinion, I really do believe that this is like self-sabotage, and I felt that way in 2016 as well. Like, I just think, like, he always says, like, like, this is who I am and I'm just trying to get my team going. And it's like, no one on your team is saying they need this from you.
Yeah.
No one's saying they need you to do this. Like, it was like a 1 possession or 2 possession game at the moment that this happened. You know what I mean? Like, you were in the fourth quarter, you're down 0-1 and you were making a run. This was actually the last thing your team needed. And the idea that I don't know if he's claimed that about this instance, but he has in the past. Like, I'm just trying to get my guys riled up. And it's like, no one is saying they need you to rile them up. You know what I mean? Like, we've seen Steph and Clay for years now. You know what I mean? Like, they know how to answer the moment in big games. Like, they just didn't need this. And I truly believe it is all self-sabotage on his part. I don't know what's going to happen the rest of the series. I mean, game 3 is tonight and this is going to come out tomorrow. So we don't have the results of that, talking about this right now. But like, I just feel like if the Warriors needed an excuse to let Draymond walk in this offseason, like, he's given them enough. Like, I have a feeling they are
punching Jordan Poole in the face. You don't think that?
Well, in case people forgot, he did start off the season by punching his own teammate in the face, and now he maybe has potentially ended it with a stomp. And I just think, like, I don't know. I just feel like he brought this on himself. And it's sad for me as a Warriors fan, because I actually really like Draymond and I think he is an elite defender. And even though his offensive numbers aren't always there, it's like he is still one of the best defenders in the game. And I actually think he has set a precedence for the undersized 5 in modern 100%. Basketball, So like, he is very important to basketball, but it's just stuff like this is so self-sabotaging. It bugs me.
Well, I agree, and I think the thing with Draymond is he's like a fire, right? Like, on one hand, he can heat your house, he can cook your meals. There's so much positive that can come from it, but unbridled, it can also burn down your house. And I think that that sort of is, I think that, I don't want to say he's enabled, but I think sometimes, because obviously we don't know what's happening in the locker room. We don't know the conversations that are being had. There's obviously been a few leaks of some arguments that he's had with players, coaches, players, namely KD and stuff like that. I'm sure people do come at him. I'm sure people do try to check him. But I think sometimes, a lot is made of like, well, just like you said, this is just who Draymond is. And you get the good with it. And I think sometimes it's just completely misplaced, and it's at the wrong place, wrong time, wrong everything. And I love Draymond for it, the same reasons that I would be annoyed with Draymond for it. And I think that's part of it. So I think I will say I think that this could be precedent for letting him walk in the off season, maybe,
or doing like a sign and trade or something to that effect. Like, I don't think they should lose him for nothing, but
yes, exactly, yeah. Plus, not a lot of teams have cap space, but there'll be some team that's like wanting to pay a guy like Dre just to put.
Well, I don't know if you.
Seats.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but both Damian Lillard and Yusuf Nurkic were like tweeting like in defense of Draymond, like fully. Yeah, and I'm like, is this some free agency recruitment happening?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people started putting their conspiracy hats on, like, oh, are they trying to get Draymond Green on their team? That's kind of interesting and different. I don't know why he would make that move necessarily, but it's just funny to have multiple players on the same team just fully defend him. I think that's hilarious.
I love that, dropping the eye emojis or the zipper emoji. So I don't know. But I think too much is being made of like, and I think it's for the news cycle, to be honest. Let's say the Warriors do lose this series. I doubt it'll be a sweep, but let's say they lose it in 5 or 6 or even 7. Some people are saying, "Oh, is this the end of the dynasty? And should they start breaking up the team?" No, I don't know why people are so obsessed with like the end of things. I mean, just 2 years ago, they were champions. Like,
they were champions last year.
Last year, sorry, I meant to say, I'm thinking of this year as well. So last year they were champions, and it's just like, just chill out. I mean, Steph is still Steph.
Okay,
Clay is a version of Clay. He's not the same Clay. Well, we just spoke on Draymond, and they have some young pieces there. I mean, am I worried about Jordan Poole? Yes, we're all worried about Jordan Poole.
We're all worried about Jordan Poole. Yeah.
Well,
look,
I really do think that there's a future there.
I'll say this. I fully tweeted that this is the end of an era and a beginning of a new one. So I was being dramatic. I was fully doing the thing that you're saying isn't true. But
I don't believe it.
But I will say this, like, okay, first of all, if we look at Golden State, look, they still have Steph Curry. And as long as you still have Steph Curry, you've got a team, right? Yeah. And I think they have been so good at building around this core with newer guys and things like that. But I feel like, and I'm only saying this in hindsight, but when they lost Kevin Durant, maybe they should have been thinking, who's the next guy we're going after here?
Yeah.
Because they allegedly recruited Kevin Durant for a long time. Yeah. Like all the other players were in his DMs and blah, blah, blah. Like they were allegedly talking to him for a long time. And I feel like maybe they should have been looking around the league and being like, who do we want to target next?
Yeah.
And I don't think they've done that. And obviously they won last year, and that's amazing.
And it was a beautiful story. I mean, like in terms of, again, it's not against Kevin Durant per se, not directly.
No, not at all.
But for him to have left and for them to still put together something, because the narrative became the overwhelming narrative that, this team with Kevin Durant was just unbeatable. And it was like those championships almost were foregone conclusions.
Yeah, they were. And I didn't necessarily like love those seasons because you knew it. But I just think like, I just feel like, look, they're not getting younger. Like these guys are in their mid 30s now. And I hate saying that as someone who's also in my mid 30s, but
How old is Steph? Is Steph?
He's 35. I'm pretty sure.
He's 35. Is he? Wow.
So it's you got to think like, how am I going to best utilize just the next few years? Because realistically speaking, that's what you have. And I don't know if running it back with what they have is it. And so I think if there is like a sign and trade opportunity with Draymond or something to that effect, then maybe that's something you have to consider. I love Draymond on this team.
Yeah.
I just mean like I'm not saying Draymond's bad for the team. I'm not saying that, but I just think like you got to be thinking forward here.
Yeah, well, I guess if you're defining that the end of an era is a sign and trade of Draymond.
No, I was being dramatic when I said it's the end of the era. I know. I was like, they're over. They're over.
I'm speaking more of the general you. Like if everybody's sort of defining the end of this era as the fragmenting of those three players and one leaving, then yeah, I guess that's the end of an era. But in terms of like, I don't know. I guess I'm looking at it in terms of it's not a full reset of this team.
No.
It's just more of you're going to have to change it's a different team. It's not as deep as it once was. There's a lot more young players on the team. It's funny how they're keeping some of their same identity. Like one problem that I've noticed that's persisted through the Warriors throughout their whole this whole era of the Warriors is the way that they turn over balls, turnover possessions. They've always done that. But the difference is that before they were just such a better team. They were elite in defense and completely changed the game in terms of floor spacing and offense, right?
And they also had other guys to pass the ball to, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had guys like Livingston and stuff like that who could hit a corner three. And then now it's Jordan Poole's supposed to be that guy. Yeah. And he's really struggled this series. And then you talked about Kuminga and then Andrew Wiggins, who I actually think has been good.
Likewise,
series,
especially
right?
for coming back when he
after so long, but isn't necessarily the dominance that he was having before. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you did this? And I thought you were raising your hand.
No, I was just pointing to the Wiggins.
Oh, you're pointing to the Wiggins.
I was doing the meteorologist.
Yes. Well, shout out to everyone on YouTube watching who will actually get that reference.
Oh, that's true. I realized. Yeah, there was just, anyways.
That people listen to the show and don't always watch on YouTube. Yeah. We're on all the platforms. But anyway, okay, let's move on a bit and talk about the Grizzlies Lakers series, which is tied 1-1 as of this recording. Been a highly entertaining series so far. Really has lived up to the hype. Last night, Memphis Grizzlies won, and now this morning, Dylan Brooks trash talking LeBron James has gone viral.
Yeah,
basically calling him old, and he doesn't care about him, and then explicitly said that he is poking the bear. Right. Yeah. Which, as we know, means he's deliberately trying to get under LeBron James's skin and is challenging him essentially, which I think a lot of people would be like, don't do. But in my opinion, I think, I'm going on a bit of a limb here, if I may.
Yeah.
I think, Dylan Brooks is from Mississauga. Shout out to Mississauga. I'm also from Mississauga. He has been watching LeBron James his whole life. More explicitly, he's been watching LeBron James kick the Raptors' ass his whole life. Yeah. I think he's been waiting for this. He wants this. He's never come out and explicitly said he was a Raptors fan, but I'm assuming he was.
Of course he was.
I'm assuming he was, right?
Yeah.
And so I think he wants this so bad. He has LeBronto in his brain, and he just needs LeBron to go off, and he just can't wait to block his shot or just something, And I think people are considering this to be he's insulting LeBron. I think he's complimenting LeBron, and I think he knows exactly what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. When did Brooks come into the league? Do you know when he was drafted? Was he?
I don't know. Maybe 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out if he would have been somebody who was watching the LeBronto series as a fan rather than a fellow player. I'm trying to just think of when he was in, but 3 or 4 years ago, he would have been watching LeBronto.
He's 27.
Yeah.
He's slightly older than I thought. He was born in 96.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he would have been a college player in the Cav years. So I think he would still be watching as a fan to some degree.
To some degree. Yeah. You start to distance a bit as you're, sort of grooming into
But do
the
you
league.
remember there was like a game years ago when like Chris Bosh was still on the Raptors and then his wife said something
I was
to
going to bring
him
that up.
and then he went off? This lives rent free in our minds. Okay. It just does. It just does.
And
we all know this
LeBron
game.
say post game, like Bosh can thank his wife or something?
Yes,
for that?
He absolutely did. He absolutely did.
Yeah, or Chris.
So,
or whatever
and that would have been the first iteration of the Cavs with him.
Yeah. Exactly. I love LeBron. It's so weird. It's so hard because I'm obviously a Raptors fan, but I feel, not to ride him too hard, but I feel like I'm honestly grateful that I've been able to watch like this guy for his career.
Yeah.
And just to see like how much hype he came in with, and for him to arguably exceed that hype. That's how big the hype is, that you would actually say arguably exceed. It's not just like definitely exceeded the hype, Like,
I mean, he was called the chosen one in high school.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he tattooed it on his back. Like, look, he didn't do himself a lot of favors. But yeah, no.
I think Raptors fans actually have the utmost respect for LeBron. Like, I think there are so many diehard Raptors fans that actually would argue that LeBron is the greatest of all time over Jordan, probably because he beat us for so many years, honestly.
Well, we got a front row seat to it, right?
Yes.
Like, I think that's part of it. And that's a lot. That's what it comes down to in terms of the argument. You'll watch the sort of partition of people that are MJ versus LeBron. It's what show did you have a front row seat to? And that's where your bias is going to be. Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly what Brooks is doing. I think it's hilarious. I think it's awesome. This goes back to, to call back to when I said that I love heels and I think that it's fun. And I think that we need to lean into that pageantry a bit. I've never really been somebody who, other than when I was like young, really, really watched the WWE. But as somebody who watched it from afar, I loved the pageantry of it. I just loved how, it just like play up to the crowd a little bit. And I think that type of stuff was almost getting lost for a little while, between players becoming like best friends who are on separate teams. You had the Banana Boat crew,
Oh, yeah.
CP3 and Melo and, and Bosh, I think, and then LeBron. And they were just like, there was too much friendliness going on.
That's such a funny thing to say.
And I didn't like it. No, but I appreciate.
Okay, Barkley. Okay, Barkley.
Yeah, exactly. And let me tell you. So, yeah, no, and I think that this type of stuff is awesome because I think that it does come from a place of reverence and love and respect, and I think he's trying to get under his skin. Do I think it might be a mistake? Yep. Yeah, I do, because I think if there's somebody you don't want to poke, it's LeBron. But as somebody who's watching the series, I really enjoy it. However, I did just have a drop in Memphis that did very well.
Yes, you did.
Hockey jerseys. I got to know some of the people in Memphis, and it was a really, really positive experience. We sold out in store in 1 hour.
Amazing.
Online, it took like a day and a half. So I am absolutely rooting for Memphis here. Were it not for that experience, I'd probably be rooting for LeBron, because I know how. I don't know, but I can only imagine how hard it is to sustain that excellence and just like go for it, go for gold, like just keep like getting championships. I just want to see you get as many as possible, as long as it's not at the expense of my team. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see the way this series goes. With John Morant out, they won last night. Shout out to Desmond Bain. And yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, I think when I think about LeBron, watching him in real time has really been special.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I don't think I've ever rooted against a player or more in my life, mainly just because of the teams he's been on and stuff like that. But I think like when he retires, it'll be a very sad day. Like I'll
100%.
miss him. I'll miss him a lot, and I think I'll never enjoy rooting against someone more in my life.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I sort of learned that lesson with Kobe. I mean, I will say that during the Heatles years, I was not a LeBron fan. I hated that whole thing.
When he was on the Heat?
Yeah. I just didn't like the super team. Now I look back on it, and I actually, I have a different lens of viewing it. But I definitely feel like I learned that lesson with Kobe a bit, because there was a period there in the late 2000s where I was a Kobe hater, and then sort of came around to being like, well, this guy's actually really good. And then, of course, we lost Kobe. And I think that was just like one of those things where it's like, maybe it's an age thing. I don't know what it is, but now I just look at players and I sort of try to, as much as possible, enjoy watching them, even if I hate watching them. Like, even if as a hater, like as somebody's like,
yeah, because you appreciate their greatness.
Yes, exactly. So I'm just trying to go like, wow, that's like incredibly impressive that they're doing that. CP3, same thing. I had a complete turn on him too. There's just players that like, I'm not saying like I'm a CP3 stan now, but definitely I look at him and go, yeah, he's super annoying, like incredibly annoying. He'll get a team attack for untucking their shirt. But like what he does, and it's like all-time greatness. Like
you should do like a Phoenix jersey, like a Chris Paul Phoenix thing, but while he's in his uniform, he also has a whistle in his mouth.
yeah.
And he's just pointing.
Anyway. Or like there's like flames burning off his jersey, and underneath it's a referee jersey.
Yeah, it's Scott Foster.
It's Scott Foster, yeah. Or like a split head of him and Scott Foster.
Yeah, it would sell. It's too shady, but it would sell. Okay, one question I wanted to ask you real quick. I feel like early on we've been defined by a lot of big injuries. Like there's John Morant, Giannis, Tyler Hero. As of this recording, Sabonis is TBD for Game 3 tonight. And of course, Paul George is out. What do you think is going to impact, like, what injury do you think is going to impact which team the most?
I don't know. I mean, like, on one hand, I think that Paul George being out is a big impact. It remains to be seen how long Giannis is out with his back.
Yeah.
That being said, I still think that the Bucks are going to win that series. The Heat took Game 1 with just some ridiculous shooting. I would say John Morant being out is a big thing for the Lakers series. I really think that the Memphis just got a really bad draw.
Yeah.
At the number 2 seed facing a number 7 Lakers that are like now back and healthy and a bit revamped. And I
still think like, Memphis could win the series, but they do have a tougher draw because they would face Golden State or Sacramento, looking like Sacramento right now. But they also are playing like a championship team. Like for all our talk about the Warriors, sorry, not to go back on my topics here, but like we forgot to talk about just how amazing the Kings have been this whole time. And I think like I picked the Warriors to win this series because I think my Raptors bias has taught me that teams that are new to the playoffs lack playoff experience and they can struggle a bit out the gate, even if they do have a phenomenal regular season. And this team has just been the opposite of that. They've been so impressive to watch. They look like a championship team, even though they've never been there before. And I've been super, super impressed with the Kings.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the ceiling on the Kings really is.
Yeah, or how they play on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
In the playoffs, yeah.
I mean, I love JJ Redick. I really enjoy his podcast. I really enjoy him on panels. But I think that I don't agree with what he said recently, that the whistle is sort of going too far in favor of the Kings in this series. I think the Kings have really played themselves into this position. Like, I think it's hard work. A lot is being talked about, like we just did, honestly, like, oh, Draymond's out. What does that mean for the Warriors' chances? I mean, yeah, of course it impacts it, but on the other hand, we're talking in the inverse here. We're not talking as much about like how great the Kings really have been, and that playoff atmosphere is just great. It reminds me of the 2014 Raptors. Like, when we sort of came back, it was a young team. We were in the 5-4 position against the Brooklyn Nets. Went to 7. Everything was just like, to this day, like,
the early WeTheNorth era. Yeah.
I think that was the first actually year. The WeTheNorth era. In fact, they weren't going to drop that until next year, but there was this incredible run that they dropped that campaign early, which interesting part about that is that, so the WeTheNorth, logo that we think of, the font, right? It's a free font that's available online that you could just go download from 1,001 free fonts, because they didn't create anything custom for it. And it's called Chinese Rocks. And they just ran it out so quickly that's why it's become the easiest thing for people to pirate. Like, you'll go out to the east end of Toronto and it'll be like, We the Beach, or We the South, or We the West. And you can find it anywhere, because you can just make that in a second. Also, look, like, another random digression from that, you ever notice that the Bucks font looks a lot like the WeTheNorth font, the new Bucks font?
Yeah, they keep copying us, like, even with their whole outdoor situation. Like, I don't know what they call. Yeah, like their Fear the Deer. They have like their own version of Jurassic Park. I forgot what it's called. Yeah, they keep copying us. It's annoying.
Is it called like the Herd or the Meadow?
Yeah, the Herd or the Meadow. It's just like the forest.
The forest.
There's no trees.
The hell are you gonna call it?
Yeah. The highway. No kidding.
Has nobody done an edit of that? Like, somebody just driving like a transport truck and like running over a deer if they lose the series. But yeah. Anyways, that's just coming. What was I talking about? Who does it impact the most? Probably them. Like, they won last night. Tillman, I think, had like a career high of 22 points or something like that. Tyus Jones was incredible. I was honestly mostly impressed with Desmond Bane. And Jaren Jackson. So, like, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, all those guys coming together, that was great. I will say that Ja Morant, with him being missing, they actually have like a decent record when he was out. It's like, I'm trying to look it up here.
Yeah, I think it was like 37 and 17 or something like that.
I thought it was 33 and 17.
Oh, okay.
I just wrote it down. But
that's probably right.
It's and I'm not like perpetuating the Ewing theory or anything here. I'm just saying that, like, it can be done. Hopefully he comes back. But I still think that they have a chance. So
yeah, I still think Memphis has a chance. I thought maybe not, but I was very encouraged by last night's game. And we'll see. We don't know how long Morant is out either. So, hopefully he is back soon.
It's a bad fall.
It was a bad fall, actually.
Like, if you watch his hand go all the way back.
Yeah, it's not great. I am personally concerned for Giannis because it is a back injury, and I do think he will come back and he will play. He'll play through the pain, I think. But I'm obviously no doctor or anything like that, but based on just my years of watching, no, you can't tell.
I was positive. Okay, well, ignore those emails I sent.
Okay, all right. I've been properly roasted, but no, I just think back issues are chronic in athletes, and it could lead to more longer term stuff with Giannis. So I think, like, whenever I hear back injuries, I do get really concerned. Maybe for this playoff run, he'll be okay. Obviously, hopefully he is. Like, I did pick Milwaukee to come out of the East. But I do think that's concerning it, and likely, hopefully not, but likely to be a chronic issue throughout the playoffs, unless it was truly minor.
Yeah, that's true. I hope not, because I as well have Milwaukee coming out of the East. I just think that they're sort of them, honestly, them or it's hard to say, because
Boston?
like the one series that I just have no interest in, because I have it such a foregone conclusion. Well, two series, because also the Nuggets one, is the Celtics and the Hawks. Like, I just think
there's several series that I have no interest in. There's the Bucks Heat, no interest. The Nets 76ers, no interest.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was even
Boston Hawks, no interest. Nuggets and Timberwolves, no real interest, although I did watch last night's game. That's 4 out of, that's 4 series. So that's a lot. That's sometimes how the first round goes. Casey, I wanted to ask you, who are your championship picks? Like, who do you think's making it to the finals? Who do you think is winning?
It's hard to say, really, because like I've actually really relatively been enjoying the parity in the league, even though actually sort of ushered in like a pretty lackluster couple of years of the Raptors, which is funny because they almost sort of ushered it in, like with their championship.
That's true.
So it's hard to pick just one person. Definitely in the West. Like, I have no idea who I'm picking to come out of the West. So that leaves me picking the Bucks in the East. I think that it's probably still the Bucks. That I think the Bucks or Boston. I don't know what it is with the West, but I can't. They're
so unpredictable. The West is completely unpredictable. I mean, I picked Golden State to beat the Kings, and that's not looking to be true at this point, even if they win tonight. I mean, that's just, I think there's a stat, like if you win the first 2 games of a series, it's like you have like a 90% chance of winning the series. Like, it's crazy. So the West is completely unpredictable. I, for fun, created like a Kevin Durant redemption bracket. Like, I was just like, what if there's a world where just the Suns win it?
That would be and
what does that look
exciting.
like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had the Suns versus the Bucks, because if you remember when Durant was against the Nets and it was the whole toe on the line thing,
right?
And then they didn't beat that series. So now he's going up against Kawhi, and Kawhi's looking amazing right now. Like, he's been the best player in that series so far, which I didn't actually expect, which is wonderful for him. And the next series, it's not as enticing in terms of like a rivalry, because it would be the Nuggets. And Durant doesn't have any relationship with the Nuggets, but still, okay, if you beat the first team in the West, and then you would face who would it be? It would be the winner of, it would be like the Warriors or Memphis or the Lakers or the Kings.
And
I was just like, who knows? You could have so many different narratives. I was picking the Warriors to go that far because I thought that's the ultimate, right? Them to face the Warriors. So for me, it was more like, what do I want to see happen? And what do I think would be the most interesting? But I already, I don't know. I posted a GIF of Angela Bassett walking away from a burning car and referred to it as my bracket. Like, I don't actually think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's the one that sort of I switched on a lot. I tend not to overreact to trades or free agents in the late season too much. Like, because, let's say, as an example, Kyrie Irving going to the Mavs, right? I tend not to overreact to that type of stuff. I mean, that went south.
The fact that we're not even talking about Luka in these playoffs is still wild to me.
I would say that actually wasn't, I don't know about internally, because obviously he's absolutely tanked a lot of teams' cultures. But in terms of play on court, I don't feel like that was actually Kyrie's fault, which was odd.
No, I know.
But the one that I sort of flipped on was the Suns, because I will say that Booker's looked incredible. Just has looked absolutely incredible. It still looks like his team, honestly. And frankly, it still really is, because that's the one thing that I've noticed with Durant has looked about as good as anybody could look coming to a team that late.
Yes.
He makes everybody better. His basketball IQ is so incredible. I'm sure he's already like further ahead in understanding the sets and plays and the different tendencies of each player. I'm sure he's light years ahead of any other person. Having said that, he does still look like the new guy on the team at times.
Yeah, I mean, the injury really threw things off because he didn't have that
crappy injury.
Yeah, because he just didn't have the time to figure all of that out. And I decided to just go for it because, like you said, like he does have such a strong IQ. He is such a good player that I just thought, well, if they can figure it out, then why not? And with things so wide open, it's also like, why not? And I'm thinking like the Clippers don't have Paul George and blah, blah, blah. It actually still could happen, but it just doesn't feel like the most likely, but nothing feels like the most likely. I do think Denver will go far. The Lakers could go
far. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, I have so many friends who believe in the Lakers, and I personally just don't. But they have an easier path. They do have an easier path.
100%. And I as well don't. I'm not calling here that I think that the Lakers are not. The Lakers are not my pick for the West. That's not what I'm saying. But it is conceivable, which is wild, as a 7 seed. And it's conceivable that another outcome of this is a Lakers Celtics finals. Like, it's possible.
Yeah.
Like, which I don't want to go, like, I don't know. We've had that. I don't want to go back to that. Just, like,
what about another Lakers Heat finals, huh? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Like, as somebody who comes from, like, I mean, both of us, like, come from a market that's, like, even though it's one of the biggest markets in the league, is not, like, the darling. I grew so tired of, like, the Lakers, the Heat, the Celtics. Like, I'm just over that stuff. Like, they a lot is made of, like, oh, they're pushing this team along and they're pushing that team along. Just push the best team along. Let's just, like, and you work on marketing that. Like, I don't care that people don't care about Sacramento as a city. Make them care about the product on the court. Like,
that's very true. I feel that way about OKC. Like, OKC has had so many teams that I love, but I haven't Googled, like, Oklahoma City tourism.
No, you know what I mean? And I never will. Sorry. No,
I remember when Kevin Durant was there, like, when he was young, and, like, he was on, like, Jimmy Kimmel or something, and he talked about, like, hanging out at the Apple store in Oklahoma City, because that was, like, the thing to do. There's nothing else to do. You would just hang out at the Apple store, and it's like, that is
you buy a lot of property there, I'm sure.
I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. We have some NBA awards. Mike Brown, Coach of the Year. First unanimous Coach of the Year ever. And then we have Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year. And then we have our first ever Clutch Player of the Year going to De'Aaron Fox. Casey, I mean, do you have opinions? Do you feel like any of this should have gone to anyone else?
Mike Brown, definitely not. Like, I really think that to me
he was a unanimous Coach of the Year. Yeah.
And something about, like, he's one of the first. He's like one of a very short list to win Coach of the Year.
To win it twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Definitely the Kings story has just been like, honestly, a delight to watch. Like, I'm really happy for that whole city
Light the Beam
and just fan base. Light the Beam is amazing. Can we just talk about how hilarious that is?
Yeah, it's very campy.
Yeah, Vivek. Is it Vivek?
Vivek,
yeah. Vivek. He just wanted, like, lasers up on there, and they're like, "This is a really dumb idea," and they didn't want to do it, and then it, like, turned into this thing that's just hilarious. It reminds me of We the North, but, like, way campier somehow.
Because there's an actual beam that needs to be lit at the end of every game they win.
And it's not like the button, like, I'm maybe maybe some people know this, maybe some people don't, but the button doesn't actually correlate to the beam. It's just somebody on a walkie-talkie, and they just go, all right, he hit it, and then somebody up top hits
the actual thing. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who don't know that because they just don't know, I don't know, industry.
Well, it's just like it wouldn't
the fakeness of film and television. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people who go to the games and think that like there's actually an opposing team. Like if you go to a Raptors game and let's say it's against the Celtics or something, there'll be like a Celtics fan that gets a pie in the face and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. And you're like, oh my God, it's a staff member of MLSE that put on a Celtics jersey and just sat like, have you not been to a game before? I'm happy for them though. I mean, live in that magic. Clutch, honestly, I think that De'Aaron Fox seems to lead in every single statistical category that there is for Clutch. It's pretty hard to quantify.
Yeah.
So I'm good with that as well. Definitely my guy, DeMar. I'm biased towards him. So if I was to like lead in a direction, I would go towards DeMar. But yeah, no, Fox definitely deserves it. And then the guy, I think that like, I really like Jaren Jackson. I really like him as a person. I think he's super dope. Like he just like, I was watching your episode with Ashley and you guys were talking about Memphis and how they're kind of fratty and,
yes,
and, you know, and I couldn't agree more. The dancing and stuff. And I love Memphis, but that will come back to bite them. I'm sure of it. It just like the wrestling moves came back to bite the Bucks. Like, it's just like, it's bad to telegraph your losses like that. Or the like post-game filming of yourself, like fucking doing workouts like the Suns did. All of that stuff comes back to bite you. Just don't do it. Jaren feels like a rock in that team. Like he does not give off that vibe at all. Just comes out, does his work, talks about defense with Dylan Brooks, and you know, goes home. Just seems like a really nice dude. So I'm really happy for him.
Wow. So he's like not a part of the frat pack.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he's got to play. I'm sure you can catch him in the background of one of those little dance videos, those NSYNC dance videos that they're doing in the player hallway, but player tunnel. But I don't think that he's leading the charge on any of those. No.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the league got all of these right this year. I don't feel a type of way like it should be someone else. I don't feel like these awards were hotly debated. Not these ones. I mean, the MVP's been hotly debated, and we've talked about that here a bunch. But you know, I feel like these three the league got right, and it just feels like, you know, kudos to them, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's my vote's for Embiid for MVP for whatever that's worth. Just because I think that I feel like Jokic might have just lost it at
the end,
sort of the dog days of the regular season. But it's very close. I really think that it's other thing I just thought of this with Jaren is that when he's out. Whereas Ja was like 33 and 17 when the Memphis is when Ja's out. When he's out, I think they're like 500. Like I think they're 9-9 or something.
Right.
So like I don't know. There was that little funny thing where they said they were padding his stats, which like I don't know. I think people reacted a little quickly to that.
That's harder to do with defense, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of Raptors talk this episode. Let's get into that. Pascal Siakam was in a poll for most overrated NBA players, and it came out, it was like 31.5% of other, and then Trae Young got 14.8%. And then Pascal Siakam got 7.4%. And I wanted to bring this up because I saw it going a little viral on Raptors Twitter here. Yeah. I will say this. If I were Pascal Siakam and I saw a poll that said 7.4% of whatever people were polled thought I was overrated, I personally really wouldn't give a shit. Yeah. Like that is such a small number of people thing. You know what I mean? Like I just, even if that is a proper reflection of the whole NBA fan base, that's only 7.4%. Like, and we all know like coverage of, you know, the Raptors isn't, you know, what great, you know, in the US and stuff like that. I just truly wouldn't care. I thought a lot of Raptors fans did care. And, you know, shout out to you. We got to defend our guys, I guess. But I thought this was a little bit of a nothing burger, as people like to say. But what did you think when you saw this?
I agree. I think what happens sometimes is that narratives stick, particularly online.
Right.
So I think that the narrative of, you know, here was a guy, it was a high followed by a pretty low. You know, here was a guy who was leading the Kawhi-less 2020 Raptors to what was on track to be a better regular season record, right?
Yeah.
He was just bursting onto the scene. And people were basically learning to spell and pronounce Siakam outside of Toronto for like the first time. You know what I mean? Like, if you watch the finals, yeah, sure. But like in general, like you're like, okay, Siakam is a guy. Like, and he was drafted 27th overall. It was 27th, correct? I think.
Yes, anyways, around that, or 20.
Around that,
yeah.
So not like a guy that burst onto the scene immediately. A bit of a surprise, a lot of a surprise. And then obviously there was the shutdown in the bubble, right? And in the bubble, his playoff performance was bad. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. It was bad. He'll say it was bad. And I think he learned a lot from those moments, but that was the narrative that stuck, right? Because this team didn't have its number one offensive option in a series against, and he wasn't very good in the Brooklyn series either. But he was noticeably absent in the Celtics series. And I think that just stuck. And it sucks that happens sometimes, because Pascal Siakam in every metric is better than he was on the 2020 team. In almost every metric. I think in threes he might be a bit down. But and this season was a disappointment, but like the two guys that sort of met expectations were OG and Pascal this season. Do you know what I mean? And really the front office failed him. And I just think that he's become sort of the linchpin, or the scapegoat rather, of the team's struggles per se. So I think that, again,
outside of our fan base, I think.
Outside of our fan base. Yeah, exactly. I think this fan base has actually been pretty good with him, outside of obviously how terrible they were during the bubble. But other than that, have been very favorable towards him because they watch him on a consistent basis. And that happens I'll talk to contacts that I have in LA that work within the league, or, you know, a league adjacent. And the way that they undervalue players on our team is it's hilarious. They'll talk about like, oh, I heard OG and Anunoby's available. Like, we'll give you this, and that. And I'm like, no, we don't want your garbage. Like,
yeah.
Sorry you don't watch them on a consistent basis. So, but there's benefits to that as well, right? Like, that's why I think that if it weren't for him going home, Kawhi would be perfect here in Toronto. Like, no, you're not going to get that attention. Yes, they won't rate you properly, but you also won't get any of the media buzz around you. Like, nobody's going to be poking and prodding outside of the Toronto Sun and the Toronto Star here. So, you know, you take the good with the bad. I think that we try as an organization. I think the Raptors try to attract people who want to keep it more on the quiet side.
Yeah,
and if the byproduct of that is 7% of people think you're overrated.
Who cares? Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think you got to look at stuff like that and just let it go. You know, you just got to let it go and focus on yourself, focus on your game, focus on, you know, whatever your goals are, and just move forward. Like we're fans. I suppose it's our job to make a whatever out of something, but to me, I was just like, nah, this is nothing. Pascal's fine. Pascal's great. Yeah.
And getting better and getting better consistently. And the one thing that, you know, comes out about Pascal, just in my like totally unimportant conversations with people who are in the practice facility with him and stuff, is like just how hard of a worker he is. Like just absolutely dedicated, hard worker. That's why it sort of sucked the way that the series ended.
Yeah.
With the missed free throws, here's a guy who's creating like just absolutely unreal, fadeaway shots during the game. And at the end it would.
Oh, to only hit one out of those three.
Yeah.
Yeah, that did suck. I agree. DeMar DeRozan's daughter, DR.
Yeah. Oh, and can I just say one thing about that?
Yes.
So the reports that came out that and I don't know if they were true or not. If they were true, like, I guess I should. So DeRozan, DeMar's 9-year-old daughter, was shrieking during the free throws, and we shot a like franchise worst at the line. Then some reports came out later that she had to be escorted away because of online threats. I'm just going to say this. I don't know if that's true. Terrible, awful, terrible behavior. As somebody who somewhat knows that family, I heard nothing of that. Nothing. I was talking to his, I was talking to his cousin. I was talking to, like, I was just like, we were laughing, sending memes back and forth. We had one that like was her shrieking next to LeBron during the Miami Celtics series where his head's down and he's looking up. So it's like her, like, we heard nothing of that. And if you're at the game and you're a member of the family, you will get escorted out of there. I seriously, I don't know who reported that or where it came from, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, it could have been true, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were like serious. But also, I mean, not that I am condoning that behavior. I think that behavior is terrible. Likewise. But I think sports fans are, they're not the best in those moments. And I think sports betting has really altered a lot of people's behaviors and what they say towards the sport. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was true, but maybe they just weren't the level of serious that was reported. I'm not sure actually, but
I don't know for sure either.
I didn't personally see any threats.
No, I didn't. I actually thought that Raptors fans, like, online at first when I was at the game, so I was only checking it at like the whistle. At first I saw like people being like, who the F is, like, shrieking, and they were so angry. And then as soon as I saw people realize that it was
who it was,
daughter,
then we 180'd. Yeah, that's how most of us were, because we love DeMar.
Yeah, we all love DeMar, and he knows it as well. Like, he's like,
absolutely. Like, he's also like, this is the one stadium I can get away with.
Like, he knows it. He absolutely knows that he's beloved here. So I don't know. I thought that report was really weird, and I did see a lot of people who weren't from like the Toronto fan base or market be like, "Oh, this is Toronto fans all over again." You're like, I don't know, man. I didn't see or.
We have a reputation. We do have a negative reputation as a fan base outside of Toronto.
Yeah.
When we think about, you talk about narrative sticking to you. I mean, the whole Kevin Durant thing was bad. Like. We are known for being a terrible, moody fan base. It's true.
Yes, and part of that is true, and that exists in a lot of fan bases. But I feel like ever since 2019, it's actually gotten pretty bad. And
because like
underbelly, that's really gross.
Like 2016 when we were in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then LeBron beat us, and then LeBron was trying to talk to Doris Burke, and it was like, let's go Raptors, like, and then he was like, do you hear this crowd? That was like our peak of being a great fan base. And then it's kind of gone downhill from there.
Well, I think there's that, and I think that I think what happened as well is that I just noticed a lot of people never come, and it's sad, it's unfortunate, but a lot of people just never came back from the lockdowns and the pandemic, and you could just see everybody's mood online shifting into a different. I know that was a little bit after, and definitely the Kevin Durant stuff happened before So there was already that momentum towards becoming this. Not everybody, of course, is speaking about this sort of underbelly, but this becoming this sort of entitled fan base. And then you could see it online, particularly on Twitter, like where there was just this shift in people's attitudes, and some people, went through it, came back, whatever, and then some people just never did, and it's a bummer. They just like mentally never recovered from that.
Yeah, that's true.
And they put all of their hopes and dreams onto the team, and when the team doesn't do well, they don't feel well. And you're like, that's really, really dangerous way to live.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who put too much of their emotional well-being into their local sports team. I think that's really because, I mean, it's a more of a philosophical conversation to have, but I really believe it's because, like, just in society, there are few places, I'm generalizing here, there are few places where we allow men to really like emote.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And express completely. Themselves, and sports is one of those areas. So that's why it just like it all comes out.
Men particularly, but people in general. I would only expand. Like men particularly, but people in general. And I think that really sucks. And I think that unfortunately there's not a lot of empathy towards that. There's more finger pointing. And I think if people were more sort of empathetic and sort of like, hey, let's open up, like, instead of going like, you're like this, then when you point the finger at somebody, that's when they get their back up. And if we were just to sort of go, but yeah, it's true. Casey, that brings us to our Raptors hottie highlight of the week. And this week it's going to OG Anunoby, who became a new, I believe, part owner of the London Lions. He is in England, and he is fashioning a fake British accent, which you gotta love. You gotta love, one day in London, and already we're talking like this. In it.
So shout out to OG.
Are you from London?
Yeah, I'm really excited to own the London Lions. I think basketball's really growing here. That was particularly bad. That last sentence was really bad.
That was pretty good. I was doing my impression of Paul Rudd in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. It's like he's talking to Russell Brand. He's like, "Are you from London?"
Yeah. He's gonna come back with a girlfriend named Gemma.
Yeah, Gemma.
He's gonna come back with a girl named Gemma.
I love that.
Yeah, but anyway, he gets the hottie highlight of the week. Congrats to him. Very cool. It's a very cool thing that he's doing. I think that's really fun.
Sam Decker's boss now, so that's interesting.
Right.
Who's playing over there. I know they did a little video for him. That was dope. I think that's really cool, man. I'm always really impressed with how, just in my lifetime, how much this league has grown internationally. I mean, I think that part of it is that it's a very easy to play sport that was always like, at least on a grassroots level of playing it in your driveway or like at a local park, was popular everywhere. But now they've really expanded it, and it would be really cool to see it to get to the level of like football, soccer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's great. Anything that, helps grow the game of basketball is awesome. So shout out to you, OG. I will try to have Raptors hottie highlights as long as they are around and posting about their lives. Okay, nice. Casey, thank you so much for joining me this week. This has been so fun. Let us know what you're up to. Do you have any upcoming drops you can tease that you want to let us know about, or anything like that? And for people who aren't following you yet, where people can find you on the internets?
So people can find me at Casey Bannerman on both Twitter and Instagram. CaseyBannerman.com is my website. At Casey Bannerman, I believe, has a underscore on my social media. So, but if you search it, you'll find it. In terms of things I have coming up, I do have a sneaky thing coming up with DeMar. So that will drop hopefully soon.
Is it a DR DeRozan jersey? Because I really would buy that. Sorry, I had to.
No,
it's just her shrieking with the number 10.
She's so funny. I think that's about it. I mean, I had my Memphis drop. Always trying to do drops. The other thing I'm going to be having coming out really soon, though, just to keep an eye out for, 2 things technically, is 2 ready-to-wear lines. So one that with a friend of mine, Allie, who runs Northern Touch Vintage, and another one will be just sort of a continuation of the 6N stuff that I do, which is sort of my little section that like sort of doing the different neighborhoods in Toronto that don't get love. You know, like enough with these Kensington Market, Queen West, blah, blah, blah. It's always the same 5 neighborhoods. Give me Malvern, give me Rexdale, give me Riverdale, you know, give me those places people don't talk about enough. So that's 2 really ready to wear lines. And we're just making moves, man. Just trying to do dope things with dope people.
Love it. Thanks so much, Casey. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.